everything has been brought to light. We have taken one more step towards the full light of sincerity. The very fact that you are unhappy and something is troubling you, we have to look within. The answer is always within. The problem is always within. It is not anybody else's fault, which we gladly try to put. Why you have come here, what you are, and what are the things that are hiding in you. So if you are insincere, do not take up yoga, the mother has warned. So Sri Aurobindo has given a very befitting reply to this. He said, I would rather think more nobly of women as well as of God. So as if, the people used to say, as if the women were created to tempt men. Ye apsara आई और मेरी तपस्या को भंग कर दिया. No, sir. If at all, the problem was within you. My heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being here. The prayer that we will take up today to reflect on from the prayers and meditations is a prayer written by the mother on April 28, 1914. She has already met Sri Aurobindo, and it is a very profound prayer where the mother is telling us something about situations, circumstances, sufferings, chaos that we all undergo in our life. And what is that one step that makes us go through these chaotic situations and the turbulences in full light of the divine? What is that step that we need to take? What is that attitude we need to keep during these very low and dark moments in our life? Now, when we think of the higher planes, the divine law is actually infallible, and it is assured that the divine law is definitely working from above. But in this world, which is an amalgam of truth as well as falsehood, this law can act only through those and on those who have completely purified themselves and have gained victory over millions and millions of insincerities which are lodged inside them. And we may realize this, that there are so many insincerities that we give into which are hiding in us, and many of them we are not even aware of that they are present in us. And blessed are those who overcome this, accept the divine command, and with full faith and in utter sincerity, they follow this perception of the divine law till the end. We just heard Aditya sing the beautiful bhajan, Aisi Lagi Lagan, Meera Ho Gai Magan. So Meerabai was one such person, Joan of Arc. Meerabai left everything. She did not care about worldly riches. She could have ruled her own kingdom and she could have lived a very lavish life. But for the law, but for the divine love, and so that the divine law manifests, she went to she left everything. And she could overcome such situations where somebody is trying to poison her, and she survives just because she had this utter faith towards the Lord. Joan of Arc, at a time when women were not even allowed out of their houses, born into a farmer's family, she actually laid the foundations of what a warrior should be like. What should be the principles on which a war can be fought? And she showed it. She died fighting. So we have heard of such vibhutis, and outwardly in their life and outwardly also in our own lives, there may be a lot of chaos, chaotic situations which plunge us into the deepest sorrow. And whatever efforts we might make, all efforts, they somehow seem to end in failure, or they prolong the failure. So outward appearances may be very different, and success still the one who believes in this divine law and for whom the person has, in utter sincerity, can go to any extent for the divine. Success, outward success, does not lure them. And when the divine moment comes, they are actually ready. And this divine moment, we think that the divine moment is one very big, flashy moment. Divine moments, life is full of divine moments. It's just that because of our insincerities and because of our own mental blockages, we are not able to utilize them, or we are not even able to perceive them, that these are the divine moments. The mother says, it is the attitude in which we take the things that is of utmost importance, and that is what matters. And how to know that the divine guidance is there and the divine is there even in those dark periods? So how can we know whether the mother's guidance is actually there for us or not? So the mother, answering this question, she once said that often people think that the divine is busy telling them, do this, don't do this. So when we think about the guidance, we straight away think of some external action or an external step that needs to be taken. And very seldom we look or we try to go within and try to take that step which is right there closest to us, within us. So she says it is not important what the situation is like, what the chaos is like, but it is very important the attitude with which we take the things when these situations come. The same circumstances, for example, a person wants to lead a life in the service of the Divine Mother and decides to join the ashram, to know her, to love her, and to be at her service. And there's another person who thinks that the ashram is a very nice place, very beautiful, very comfortable, all needs are taken care of, and so doesn't want to take the challenges of life. So the action is the same. Both of them want to stay in the ashram. But from the yogic point of view, there is a vast difference. The attitude in which both of them are approaching is very different. Same action, but different. So, interestingly, both Sri Aurobindo and the mother, if we look at their collected works, there are few statements which are word by word, verbatim the same, what Sri Aurobindo said and what the mother, and they worded it exactly in the same way. And here is an example of that. Sri Aurobindo and the mother, from their collected works, you see how in unison the words are. From the standpoint of yoga, what you do is less important than how you do it, and with what consciousness you do it. That is most important. And same words were uttered by the mother and Sri Aurobindo. So if I am doing something which is for a very selfish reason, my attitude cannot be right. And whereas if I take a wrong step, knowing that it is a wrong step, but it is for the benefit of the collective, and it is also for the benefit, you know that the person is right and you want to save that person. So if at all you have to tell a lie, that lie will not have its effect like we think of it. So that can be very well justified. So it is the attitude and the intention with which we are looking at things and taking our steps. A soldier fighting on the battlefield is engrossed in bloodbath, no? But there is a reason, and the attitude with which the soldier is fighting for his country, that matters. So many people, they say when they don't know what to do, they pray to the mother And often we hear these kind of things that, oh, the mother is asking me to do this, or the mother is asking me not to do this. Whereas if we read the letters of the sadhaks to the mother seldom said, do this or do that. Even when people came to her with their problems, she hardly told them, do this, don't do this, you must follow this path. What she did was, she posed that problem to the disciple in such a way that it revealed a truth about the situation and the attitude that was open for the disciple to take. Whether the disciple decided to take it or not was on the disciple, was on his intent, and was on his attitude. But what she revealed was the overall effect and how things work in this world. So, in this prayer of April 28, the mother is actually telling us what should be our attitude in the darkest and the most unexpected low moments that we face. April 28, 1914. Thou art the master of the world. Thy law unfolds before us with precision. And as I thought, or rather, as thou didst make me understand it before we left Paris, it is the best. What could best serve thy work in the world that has happened? In beatitude, I commune with thy puissance, dominating over darkness and error, shining like a marvelous and eternal dawn above the mud of hypocritical force and its apparent success. Everything has been brought to light. We have taken one more step towards the full light of sincerity, and this full light will be the first stage of thy reign upon earth. O thou inconceivable splendor, thou conqueror of all ignorance, victor over all egoism, thou who dost illumine all hearts and enlighten all minds, thou who art knowledge and love and being, let me live constantly in the consciousness of thy unity. Let me always conform to thy will. With reverent and silent devotion, I bow to thee as the sovereign Lord of the world. We have perhaps this small reference directly from the mother to that great change in her life when she left her country, when she left the place, her own place, and she embarked on the journey. And she knew at that time that she had not erred and her steps had not faltered because the best had happened. And what was that best? It brought her to the feet of the Divine Master, Sri Aurobindo, and with whom she would mold the destiny that awaited the earth. So this is one very small reference directly coming from the mother, that when she left Paris, she had this feeling and she had this certitude that now, whatever be the situations, it will all be towards the best for the divine work. Now, for the first 36 years of her life, our sweet mother shielded herself from the hostile forces and quietly prepared herself for her role of the world mother. She had already achieved a vast and inner identity with the divine, and this, because of this identity with the divine, when she embarked upon something which was totally unknown towards the future, there was no doubt in her mind that this was for the best. And whatever be the situations, the best is going to come out of it. Now we talk of the changes in the world, we talk of how the world has changed and how the world is changing. But imagine, in 1914, when she writes this prayer, what was the condition even for traveling this large a distance through ship and to an unknown territory? She didn't know about this country at all. And so imagine the situation, and the rumblings of the First World War were already there. So how difficult it must have been to prepare for this travel and to prepare herself. But mother being mother, she took it. So if we look at the prayer very closely, she opens the prayer by saying, "Thou art the master of the world. Thy law unfolds before us with precision. And as I thought, or rather as thou didst make me understand it before we left Paris, it is the best. What could best serve thy work in the world, that has happened." She says it with absolute certainty that what is the best thing that would serve the divine intention in things had already taken place, and she was more than willing, and she was the willing instrument of the divine to serve him and his work in the world. And that happened, and that which brought her to the feet of the divine master is the best. So our idea of best is very different from the divine's idea of the best. Outwardly and from one can say from the worldly people's point of view, what happened to Draupadi, or what happened to Vibhishan, or what happened to the Pandav, the 5 brothers, that was very wrong. That was very unjust. That was very unfair. But if we look at the end point, we can say now that whatever they underwent, it only brought them closer to the divine, and it helped in the divine manifestation. It is not that the divine mother is saying that your divine law unfolds with precision. So it is not that the divine law unfolds with precision only in her life or only in the life of the so-called chosen ones. She says it happens with all in the human life, but we do not understand it. The mother, of course, she understood it with a divine certitude because she had prepared herself. And she was, one thing that she will be talking again and again in the prayer is about that step. And that step was a total, complete, unobstructed, unhindered sincerity with no adulteration in it. So that is how she had prepared, and because she has been sincere in putting it to the Lord and in expressing it to the Lord without any feelings for herself or without any kind of intention for her own self, so she is able to perceive it with the certitude. And something that brings us at the feet of the Lord is always the best. Something that makes us turn to the divine is always the best. At that moment, we may not realize it. We may crib, we may lament, we may cry. We may even tell the divine, "Why did you do this?" But the divine knows, and he makes us undergo only that much as he feels that we will be able to take. And he has given everything to us, all help to us. And he has given it to us, he has filled us up with that kind of help. Only thing, we get so much dazzled by outward appearances and all, we hardly look inwards and we hardly discover the gems which the divine has placed within us. So the very best bringing to the divine feet of the divine Lord is, there is no doubt that whatever happens in life to bring you to that moment is always the best. Now, of course, one of the disciples, very interestingly, he asked her, is it always the best that happens? So the mother explained that whatever happens, whatever has happened. So it is the best, considering the totality of your inner state, your own attitude, and the circumstances in which you are. In that totality, whatever has happened for the best. Now, the disciple, not satisfied, asked her, "Could it have been better, mother? Is better than best possible?" So she says, yes, if you took the right attitude. If you took the right attitude, only the right attitude has a power over the circumstances. So there are two kinds of humanity. One that succumbs to the circumstances and does nothing about it. Circumstances mein phas gaye to phas gaye. And the other which with their own attitude, they invariably come out of the situation, and not only do they come out of it, it also helps them to change the situation. Because when you change inwardly, outward has to change. So it's always inward to outward. Whereas our glance and our attitude is from outward to inward. Whatever is outwardly happening, we get so bogged down by that. But if we take care of the inner attitude, then even the circumstances can be overcome. Not only overcome, they can also change. And they can change the person so that now the divine law and the divine work and can proceed through him. So the mother goes on to say, in beatitude, in bliss, in the divine bliss, one can say, in beatitude, I communed with thy puissance, dominating over darkness and error, shining like a marvelous and eternal dawn above the mud of hypocritical force and its apparent success. So she knows that the situation is not good. The world is undergoing turbulence. The rumblings of the First World War have already started. Imperialism is at its peak, and the hypocrisy of so much torture, so much massacre, so much of killing by the government, the elite government of the British, and the imperialism, the hypocrisy associated with that. On one hand, you consider yourself very pristine, glorified, and on the other hand, you are colonizing and you are torturing. And for what? Only for selfish motives, for money, for getting the goodies from India at a low cost. So these hypocritical forces, so today, of course, much has changed. But the mother is talking about that time. So if we just look at the past 100 years, it is not a perfect world today yet. But if we look at the world today, there is, of course, we can feel it, and we also know, and we can see certain things happening. We see the decisive change and the definitive turn that has happened. Something has definitely happened in the consciousness of humanity. So much of churning we see now, no? People are living their good jobs, but they are going into something that is going to benefit and uplift the collective. So at that time, the mother is talking of the imperialism and how the Asians were subjected to torture and how getting everything from the Asian countries, but you are calling them inferior. So there were no human rights at that time. We imagine the condition of the women. So she says that she sees that when she is seeing mud all around her, even at that point of time, she is seeing you can say, the divine power, the puissance of the divine, and she's not focusing on the mud, but she's focusing on the splendor of the divine. So very simply, we learn that regardless of appearances, we must have faith in the dawn of truth and its ultimate victory. So we must have that faith. And if we have that faith, then whatever be the circumstances, we will always look upward to the divine. And we will not focus on the mud, because if we focus on the mud and the chaos and the difficult situations, we will be even more, we will be bogged down into them. We will be pulled into them. So our, you can say a glance or our intention, our attitude should be upwards, an upward aspiration. So when the mother was asked that what should be taught to the children, the mother had said very openly that the children should be taught about the certitude of truth's final victory, Satyameva Jayate. And this truth is not the truth that we often think according to the conventions in the world, but this is the truth of God's will in us and the truth of our soul and its destiny. That is the ultimate truth that the mother is talking of. So she is focusing on the divine power. She is focusing on the puja and not on the lower things or the mud, one can say. Sri Aurobindo, he once told his disciples, who often complained of their miseries and their difficult situations, and they lamented about them so much. So he said very clearly that tell yourself that I am not this struggling creature. And it is also stated in the Upanishads, no? I am that. Thou art that, Shvetketu. So it's already given in the Upanishad, thou art that. So, and when we do that, when we focus on that, what we are and what we are capable of, we keep on opening the doors of the grace. The grace is a very tangible thing. It is always around us. It never leaves us. Only thing, we are not able to touch it because we close ourselves with our attitude of insecurity, insincerity, and lack of faith. So when we keep focused on the divine truth and the divine law and the divine within, then it opens the doors of the grace. And what we need to do is not to identify ourselves with the dark things, but to identify ourselves with the light that we have right in front of us. And this light is very accessible, and that is what the mother is bringing out in the pair. This is the, you can say, the light of sincerity. One has to be utterly sincere. She says, everything has been brought to light. We have taken one more step towards the full light of sincerity. And she's talking of herself. And she's talking of the situations. And she knows that the divine is making her do this. Everything has been brought to light. We have taken one more step towards the full light of sincerity. And this full light will be the first stage of thy reign upon earth. This is the full light of sincerity, complete sincerity. And the mother says that one of the first steps of sincerity is mental honesty. Never tell a lie to yourself. Never hide anything from the divine. And these two things are a must. It doesn't mean that, sincerity has got nothing to do with people. But it has got everything to do with our own selves. Never tell a lie to yourself. And it is so common. We unconsciously justify everything we do or that is happening in our life. Somewhere she has said that if you are unhappy, right above it, I am not sincere. The very fact that you are unhappy and something is troubling you, we have to look within. The answer is always within. The problem is always within. It is not anybody else's fault, which we gladly try to put. मेरे साथ ये हो रहा है because of this person. Or मेरे साथ ही हो रहा है because the situation is this, so I had to take this step. So this is all lack of sincerity. So one should be able to see oneself as one is and put it to the divine. In a conversation, in prayer, or just put it to the divine. She says, never conceal anything from the divine. We often quietly and sometimes gloriously, we have a very good image of ourselves. And it is all somebody else's fault. Because I will not do this. I was made to do this because of another person. Because he said this, so I had to retaliate. Because he did this, so I had to give him an answer, and I did this. So it is his fault. Had he not done it, I would not have done it. So this is how we justify ourselves. Judge others, but we don't look within. So if we sincerely turn to the mother for her help and guidance, one thing she always does is she takes away this mantle of, or you can say this halo of good guy image from us. And she will do something to us in a way known only to her, which makes us aware of our own follies and where the difficulty lies in us. Try writing a letter to the mother for a week and see what happens. So, when we write candidly, when we express candidly whatever is troubling us to the mother, putting things as they are, putting ourselves as we are, then she does it. She says, if you are not sincere, I will not be able to help you, because you yourself will shut the door and you will not allow me to work in you. So when the divine presses, it will show us. And the divine will press us only when we are very sincere and very open. And then the divine presses us. But the divine in this pressure, it is also revealing to us so many things about our own nature. Many times the letters I have written to the mother in the past, when I look back at them and I read them, I can clearly see that I had such a good image of myself. And when I was talking to the mother, and she laid bare everything in front of me, and today when I look at those, I feel that it was so superficial. It was on the outward surface only. I was really not looking inside. But if we are very open to the mother, she opens us. वो बिल्कुल खोल के रख देंगी. And she says that if you are insincere, do not take up yoga, because yoga is going to lay bare everything. It is going to topsy-turvy your entire life. But that has a purpose. Unless that is done, you will not realize why you have come here, what you are, and what are the things that are hiding in you. So if you are insincere, do not take up yoga, the mother has warned. And she says hypocrisy is something when you put up an image of yourself before the world, something you are not. You are trying to portray yourself as that. That is hypocrisy. So, of course, you don't have to tell the whole world everything about yourself. Because if you do that, 300-400% guaranteed that you will be misunderstood and you will be blamed. And you will only make a tamasha of yourself. But tell the divine everything. Tell the divine everything in the most raw form that you can think of. So, anger issue, we all have, no? So, we tell the Divine Mother, Mother, this person makes me very angry. So, instead of that, if we can just tell the Mother, Mother, I am suffering from anger issues. I am very prone to anger. Tell me what I need to do. Show me how I can control myself. Okay? So, instead of कोरोना के टाइम पे बहुत हुआ था ना, पैंडेमिक, मदर ये क्या कर दिया आपने, भगवान ये क्या कर दिया, क्या दशा बना दी. सो भगवान ने नहीं दशा बनाई. इंस्टेड इफ वी जस्ट टेल द मदर, मदर, take away this fear of the pandemic from me, take away this fear of the disease from me, and then she will work in you. So if you constantly, पहले तो दूसरों को blame कर रहे थे, and when the situation gets worse, you start blaming the divine. This is not fair. So, and funnily, the olden times Semitics and medieval ascetics, they blame the women. Whatever, for our downfall, for the downfall of men, women are responsible. So Sri Aurobindo has given a very befitting reply to this. He said, I would rather think more nobly of women as well as of God. So as if, the people used to say, as if the women were created to tempt men. ये अप्सरा आई और मेरी तपस्या को भंग कर दिया. No, sir. If at all, the problem was within you. So one has to be very sincere. So automatically, human beings have a tendency to judge situations, judge people, and we also judge ourselves without knowing ourselves fully. So the mother says that the full light of sincerity, when one is utterly, candidly sincere, that is dawn. That light we have to seek, and that light comes and shows us everything, provided we are very, very sincere. And the mother at that stage of her realization, of course, she must be undergoing something to talk to the divine like this. And what she was undergoing is not important. But if we just look at that stage of realization that the mother had, she says the first stage of the divine reign upon earth is there. It's already there. The first step has already been taken. So if the mother is saying this, so obviously the way has been cleared tremendously for the entire humanity. So she says that the full light of sincerity will be the first stage of the divine reign on earth. So sincerity is the first step. Now the first stage is already active because mother ने उसको active कर दिया है and वो एक auto mode पे काम कर रहा है अब. So and today if we look at the effect of what the mother has said over here, that the first step has already been taken. So today if we look at, nations at war, they can't hide anything now. We all come to know why they are doing it. And the so-called hypocrisy of the United Nations and the so-called hypocrisy of the nations who are at war with each other and who talk of peace all the time. They want to have peace and settlement. But actually what they are doing is their only intention is to prolong the war. And there are agencies which want the war to be prolonged. So everything is spilling out now. Nothing is hidden. All scams are coming out, no? So the light is already there. And now it is our part. We want to participate in this adventure, as the mother has called this as adventure. She says even if a few are able to open like this, then it will be like a contagion. Then I can work and it will spread very fast. She goes on to say in the prayer, very beautiful. O thou inconceivable splendor, thou conqueror of all ignorance, victor over all egoism, thou who dost illumine all hearts and enlighten all minds, thou who art knowledge and love and being, let me live constantly in the consciousness of thy unity. Let me always conform to thy will. So even when all the darkness is there, she is looking at the divine splendor and light. And she is leading by example. She says this is the right attitude. Ultimately, it boils down to this, that the world may be at war, circumstances may be dark, sorrowful, impossible, but inside we must always harbor the consciousness of unity. And the consciousness of unity is not there is no intellectual understanding of it, but man has to grow in the consciousness of the divine. And people say कि ये तो impossible है. Looking at the situation in the world, people will say this is impossible, and they will say that there is no solution to this. इसका कोई solution नहीं है, ऐसे ही चलेगा. And so, if it is impossible, if living in the consciousness of the divine is impossible, then actually there is no solution and everything will go down. Sri Aurobindo says, man growing in consciousness of the divine is the only way. Man growing in the consciousness of the divine is the only way. If this is not the way, then there is no way. And so man can write his fate of doom. Man only does it. The divine does not write the fate of doom for man. The divine has given us everything. The mother is showing us the way. Look towards love. Look towards light. Look towards the divine splendor. Be conscious. Be sincere. Instead of focusing on the mud. That's what she says. Live in the consciousness of unity regardless of appearances. So now, when we do that, this consciousness, it starts affecting in a very large way. And it will transform, its aim is to transform everything. Whether it will transform everything in our own lifetime is not important. But it is important to live in the consciousness and seek this consciousness in all sincerity. This is the great inner victory. And the mother says that there is no egoism that can last before the divine. There is no egoism that the divine cannot conquer. He is the all-conqueror. So, it may not translate in the outer world as an outward success or, a victory outwardly, but it will have its impact within you to establish and catapult towards the dawn of truth, the mother says. So, instead of looking at the darkness and the sorrow, and we often have this habit, thodi si problem hoti hai, and we go to great lengths to explain to another person, oh, I went to the doctor, I had this sugar problem, the doctor gave me this, then some accident has happened, we all want to talk about it. So there is some kind of an attraction towards this sorrow and darkness, because the forces of darkness, asuric forces, are all around. But we have to be very conscious, and consciously we must avoid these kind of things. And when we don't understand what the other person is saying, suppose you are surrounded by people who are only talking about negative things, who are only talking about something that bad has happened to them and how they are struggling with it and this and that. So at that point of time, what one needs to do is, you can just think of the mother and create a kind of a space around you which does not touch you, so that these vibes, these talks, these conversations, they don't touch you inwardly. So that is all we can do. And one has to be very conscious of and alert. The mother has said there is no compensation for this alertness and this vigil that we must have. And the more sincere we are, the more we will find it easier to be alert, and the more we will connect everything to the mother. And she's the golden bridge. And she ends the prayer with reverent and silent devotion, I bow to thee as the sovereign Lord of the world, with reverent and silent devotion. So, devotion in the purest form is always silent. It is not gana, bajana, nachna, or talking about it loudly. One who is devoted knows and is quietly devoted. So with reverent and silent devotion, I bow to thee as the sovereign Lord of the world. In you lie all powers. All powers are there, of light, of bliss, of ananda. So let us look up to that. And she says she's seeing darkness and error all around, but she's invoking the Lord. She is not concentrating on the darkness. She is concentrating on the light of the divine to come and remove all this darkness. Of beatitude, of the divine bliss and happiness. And she has the certitude of victory, because the divine is definitely going to triumph over all egoism, all ill will, everything. So, as long as we turn to the divine love and we look up to this light which the mother has already showered on us why will the darkness affect us or bother us? So let us seek that light, let us seek that power, which is above all situation, above all circumstances, above all egoism, and which is humble, which is full of light, which is full of love and gratitude for the Divine Mother. Let us read this prayer once again. April 28, 1914. Thou art the master of the world. Thy law unfolds before us with precision. And as I thought, or rather, as thou didst make me understand it before we left Paris, it is the best. What could best serve thy work in the world, that has happened. In beatitude, I commune with thy puissance, dominating over darkness and error, shining like a marvelous and eternal dawn above the mud of hypocritical force and its apparent success. Everything has been brought to light. We have taken one more step towards the full light of sincerity, and this full light will be the first stage of thy reign upon earth. O thou inconceivable splendor, thou conqueror of all ignorance, victor over all egoism, thou who dost illumine all hearts and enlighten all minds, thou who art knowledge and love and being, let me live constantly in the consciousness of thy unity. Let me always conform to thy will. With reverent and silent devotion, I bow to thee as the sovereign Lord of the world.